and welcome to Progressive Grocer today. I'm Emily Crow, editor in chief at Progressive Grocer. We're taking a deep dive into vital, market changing topics that often affect both daily operations and the longer term future of the grocery industry. As we all know, the rules of grocery competition are being rewritten. With the former CEO of ADUSA making the jump to Dollar General, the message is clear. Value focused disruptors aren't slowing down. And according to Upside's latest research on the growing income divide, shoppers aren't either. In this episode, I'll be speaking with Kevin Hart, CSO at Upside, to unpack the competitive and consumer pressures reshaping traditional grocers and why smarter partnership ecosystems can create the kind of differentiated value that loyalty programs simply can't. Kevin, thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Great. So, as I mentioned, the former CEO of ADUSA just made the jump to Dollar General. What does that signal to you about where grocery competition is headed?
Yeah, I think it has been a very interesting last year in grocery, obviously macroeconomic factors, a lot of external factors. Um, I think it carries on a signal that we've been seeing through some of the research we've been doing the last couple of years around um, consumers are just showing up in more stores for the grocery shop. And I think Dollar General obviously is a massive player in that market. I mean, you might not see them everywhere in every urban setting, but 20 plus thousand stores. A disproportionate number of those are pure grocery trips. So I think the competition is only heating up. For us, I think it points to just um, more and more folks chasing those trips, right? Dollar General, you've got obviously Aldi, you've got Lidl, call them more disruptors. Then you've got big box like Target recommitting to grocery. So market's getting hot for sure.
So, I was going to ask if this is a one off or part of a bigger trend you're seeing, but it seems like it's part of a bigger trend.
I think it's a trend though that follows not um, something inherent to grocery, but more to the consumer um, changing. Right, the consumer moving further away from just committing to one or two stores for that shop and actually seeking, call it different elements of value or different elements of choice or different elements of trading down, but in different stores. Let's say their willingness to move has increased in order to get what they perceive as the right choice. Now, that might be different between low income or high income, but it is still what's happening. They're making a decision to shop multiple stores in order to garner a thing, whether that's savings, whether that's higher perceived quality. They're making that choice more readily than they were even 2, 3 years ago.
Okay. So, Upside's latest research points to a growing income divide in consumer spending. What are you actually seeing in the transaction data?
Yeah, I think it's I think it's very very interesting that when you hear, you watch the news, you see a lot, prices are up. The assumption would be, well, everybody's spending less money. Um, the reality is that's just not true. In aggregate, yes, but what you're seeing is lower income disproportionately affected by those economic headwinds, where you're seeing higher income actually somewhat less affected and actually still willing to increase their spend, but you're seeing the lower income actually decrease their spend, or what we call trading down, whether that's item level or again perception level. They're trading down those different shops, which has been a very interesting trend in how operators need to think about their retail consumers. It's not one size fits all, and it's not price down or price up. You've got different folks that are getting further and further apart. That's making it harder for brands to operationalize.
So it sounds like the average shopper is sort of becoming a less useful concept. How should grocers be rethinking who they're actually marketing to?
Um, yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I think grocers are certainly out there trying to find that out. I think they've started to move away from the average shopper. Um, the good news for grocers, they have tons of penetration often with some of their loyalty programs, so they have interesting data about items, how they're shopping, what they're shopping for, which is helpful. Um, but when you get outside of that bubble of the loyalty program, I think it is getting much harder to understand what's in the way of quote unquote reaching that average shopper. it's not that clean anymore. It's not, well, lower prices, invest in produce. It could be multiple different factors. And I think that's the one place retailers have not been particularly forward leaning on, which is how do I individually reduce the friction of a particular person rather than use my loyalty program to deliver something or think about a quote the average shopper to maximize penetration. It's changing very, very quickly.
Okay. So, talked a little bit about the problem with loyalty programs. What does a grocer with a great loyalty program still get wrong?
Okay, so I will start by saying loyalty programs are great. Um, I think you almost have to have them to be at parity. Um, and I think in most cases they are insufficient and likely the biggest trap is imbuing loyalty programs with powers they do not grant you. And what do I mean? I mean, if I build the greatest loyalty program ever, I run the risk of thinking like I have solved or potentially solved how to create loyal purchase behavior. Because look, I'm adding users to this. I'm adding users faster than anyone else. People love my loyalty program. They all say so. But in reality, what I wind up with is a box. It's a good box. It has users in it. But when you look inside that box, there are all kinds of users. There are non-shoppers. There are infrequent shoppers. There are very infrequent shoppers. There's semi-infrequent. There's occasional. There's frequent. There's loyal. There's I love you to death. I'll only shop your store. The whole spectrum exists there just like they do in your non-shopper population. The key is how do I maximize what I get from those shoppers that I've put in that box? And don't overestimate what it gives me for all the shoppers that aren't in the box. For example, if if a shopper belongs to 5 different grocery loyalty programs near their home, are they loyal to any of those programs? Or by definition, are they a free agent? Are they shopping around if they're in all of those different programs? Now, maybe they maximize one or they appreciate how one operates, but I will tell you that most shoppers, if you go and we've done some of the consumer research, they really struggle to identify the differentiation from loyalty program A, B, C, D, or E. Not that they don't use them, they use all of them whenever they shop those stores. So loyalty programs can help influence. I would not rely on them though as the differentiator that will create exclusivity to your brand.
Okay. So, I've heard the idea of partnership ecosystems as the alternative. What does that actually look like in practice?
Um, yeah, and the partnership ecosystem space has gotten massive. I think it exploded obviously during COVID when delivery accelerated and everybody delivered, and you started to get all of this exposure to not just impressions but real services that you needed. Right? If we just go back and look at delivery, it was great. There was this moment in time where folks needed groceries delivered, and operators had to decide whether they wanted to build that functionality or outsource it to these smart companies like Instacart, others. And oftentimes those decisions came with exclusivity, right? Basically, retailer A, will you join and let me deliver your groceries? If so, I'll give you exclusivity in this market. Now, they didn't really talk about that. Exclusivity was very time bound. And the long term plan for a lot of those partnerships was to serve the consumer, not necessarily the retailer, right? So if you think about delivery, you think about a number of those, their ultimate customer, it is the consumer, right? That's who pays them. They provide a service to the retailer. Some mark it up, some don't. Customer pays them. If the customer is my ultimate end user, my responsibility is to create ubiquity of inventory because I want to serve them all. I don't care necessarily where they shop. That's a dangerous partnership ecosystem to live in because I've just taken what exists in nature in brick and mortar and translated it to this digital footprint where they happen to deliver groceries. The place we see folks leaning towards is trying to figure out can you create pure differentiation and exclusivity in that partnership ecosystem. That is more challenging, but it's possible. And if you can do that, then loyalty plus that differentiator that others can't use, potentially that combination is where you can maximize true loyal behavior and trips through the store.
So, what makes a partnership genuinely differentiated versus just another promotion?
Uh, I think for us, it's really, really simple. Can all of your competitors do it or not? And that is a hard question to answer because often um, The closer you are to the thing you've built, whether that's a loyalty program or anything else, you see tons of differentiation. Oh, no, no, no. The way we promote products is different. The way we price is different. The way we do outreach is different. Again, the consumer does not see that differentiation. They are standing 200 feet away. They see loyalty program A, B, C, or D. Now, what they can tell is whose loyalty program is it, or who is or is not in this partnership ecosystem. So, for example, in Upside, if retailer A is on the platform, their nearest competitive grocer is not on the platform. Mm-hmm. So that's a very easy moment where they can look and say, okay, I like what you are offering that helps reduce friction. My choice is automatically limited, which is great for the partners that participate because I am just going to try to ship that demand.
Okay. So fuel partnerships are a classic example of a high cost differentiator. How should grocers think about where to invest and then where to pull back?
Yeah, I mean, especially now. I mean, now is a very interesting
Yeah.
time where many likely wish it would be great if I had a fuel partnership right now. But the real answer is long-term steady state fuel partnerships can be very expensive for grocers. They can be, in some cases, not very differentiated. So I am all a huge supporter of leveraging the thing that I used to say it's the only thing you have to leave your house to buy, technically, is fuel.
Yeah.
It's not true in parts of Texas, but it is technically true in most places.
Sure.
Building that type of partnership where your shoppers can get disproportionate reward is great, but actually having some type of world where I know that shopper is out and about leveraging that fuel network and I can draw them in. I think that's becoming the more important piece in that partnership, right? Can I reach out and touch that user when they are shopping fuel and direct them to a grocery store? Can I take the user at a grocery store and shop them to a fuel provider nearby? I think that ability of capturing the shop while it's happening, while the trip is quote unquote available, they're in a car, they're in a market, they could do a shop. Can you activate them? I think that's where you're seeing fuel partnerships start to head versus just the conversion of dollars to points and points back to dollars back and forth. I don't think that's as differentiated as it once was, and it's very expensive.
Yeah. So is all of this ultimately about winning back trips or basket size? Is it both?
Um, it's definitely both, for sure. I think I hear retailers talking more about basket size now than in the past. I think it's very interesting because I think it is somewhat attached to the growth of their loyalty programs. It's a natural thought to say, hey, in my loyalty program, I can promote more items, I can drive more basket size. Trips are hard, especially trips for the users that aren't in your loyalty program, because I have to reach out and grab a user that has decided to not shop my brand for one reason or another and put them in my store. That's where I think partnerships can be extremely useful. If I can reach out, grab that non-shopper, put them in store, introduce them to that loyalty program, get them enrolled, and then allow that to do what it does best, which is potentially increase basket size, potentially um, put a differentiated set of higher margin items in the basket. It's fantastic. Um, I just look at it somewhat as if you could unlock trips, it's the multiplier to that frequency or the basket sizing that you're able to drive. That's where I think you see maximum benefit. If I can actually figure out which of those two things is my loyalty program trying to drive, for example, that clarity is very helpful because when you think it does both, like I said earlier, that's where you run into problems.
Okay. So, how much time do traditional grocers have to get this right before the gap becomes too hard to close?
Um, I mean, listen, I live in the DC metro area. I don't think there's ever been more options on how to shop than there is right now. So I think the fight is on very loudly right now to one, I think stop chasing or believing you can go win the consumer. I think you have to let some of that go and realize the battle is no longer for Kevin or Emily or Sarah, or that's not who we're fighting for. We are fighting for the recognition that Kevin's going to make 6 trips to grocery stores in the next 18 days. I would like to win disproportionate share of those trips and then leverage all the wonderful things I do in store and with my loyalty program to drive the most compelling basket. I think that has to become the battle. That sounds, well, of course, isn't that what they do now? kind of, but not really. They really still, in many cases, believe, how do I convert, Emily? How do I convert, Kevin? I don't think you do anymore. I think that is just a human behavior change that you have to accept. That's where the time pressure comes. I think the more you fight the first battle, the more you just spend a ton of money for very little return, while others are actually starting to figure out, how do I win the trip, right? How do I get each individual trip that is essentially for sale in the market?
Okay. So finally, if a grocer is listening right now and perhaps feeling the squeeze, what's the one thing they should be thinking about differently?
Um, I, I I would drive retailers to go out and ask somebody that is not very close to all of the wonderful things you do to tell you what is different about what you do versus your top five competitors. Really differentiate it. And I'd ask the hard question, but what is it that you can do that they cannot do? Not that they don't do, that they cannot do, right? If you think the best loyalty program is still time bound, everyone will arrive at that station at some point. Every loyalty program only goes one way. It gets better over time, and we all arrive at a similar destination. Take, for example, the idea of quote unquote personalization. I'm sure you've heard a million people. It's all about personalizing offers. We're going to have digital sign price. It's all great, but everybody is going to arrive there at some point. So you're winning. You'll get time, but is it truly a differentiated thing that you could build around long term? Probably not. So I would tell you, like, take an honest look at how you're structured today. Don't don't give rights to things you're doing that they don't deliver to you, like a loyalty program. Trust and build the really good things that they do, and then go find partners to help fill the gap.
Great. Well, Kevin, thank you again for joining us and for your wonderful insights.
You bet. Thanks for having me, Emily.
For more information about the Progressive Grocer Today podcast, please visit www.progressivegrocer.com/podcasts. You can also subscribe to this series wherever you typically listen, including on Apple, Google, and Spotify. See you next time, and thanks so much for listening.